There's no UFC action taking place this upcoming weekend, but the following weekend we have 2 top 6 flyweight women throwing down in a main event slot. Alexa Grasso taking on Viviane Araujo. It's not the most stacked of cards, but you guys know the routine by now. We're going to find our spots to make some money, and that's coming off one of the more profitable weeks that we've had in a long time. Of course, dating back to the last Dana White's Contenders Series episode of the season, all the way into the previous UFC card that just took place. We had a very, very profitable week, and I'm looking to take those profits and throw them around for this upcoming fight card. So you guys know I'm excited for this episode here. In fact, although this is not the most stacked of cards, I do believe that there are some glaring spots to make money. Hopefully you guys are on to what I'm on to. Let's get to it.
The teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? UFC Fight Night, Grasso versus Araujo. I feel great to be back on the mic. Hopefully you guys are all doing well out there. Very quickly before we jump into the card, I'll run a few things by you guys. As I said, hopefully you guys checked out my recap for this past week's bets, because we were hammering plays, and I hope that was the same case for you guys. I told you guys there was a lot of spots on that fight card there, and we definitely capitalized. And again, we kicked the week off with that underdog play on Bo Nickel to finish the fight via submission, and we took that right into the weekend's fight card there. So I feel very good about that. And like I said, we got units to throw around here for this fight card, and there's some spots to make some money. And I'm curious if you guys know what spots I'm talking about, because they're there. Other than that, I do want to give a special thank you to everyone that's gone over to my Instagram and hit me with that follow. We surpassed 8,000 followers, on to 9 now. Let's hit that 10K. Again, it's much appreciated. Also, catch me on Twitter at the MMA Teller, and again, my Instagram is MMA Fortune Teller _. If any of you guys are looking to work with me for my official plays, you guys can always shoot me a message, and I will send you over my pricing for those of you guys that are interested. And what else? I think that's about it, huh? Let's go. We'll take a brief look before we jump to the first fight. I mean, we got Grasso and Araujo in the main event, of course. Martinez versus Cub Swanson. I kind of like that matchup there. Jonathan Martinez has been putting in work. He gets an opportunity to face off with a legend in the game. Cub Swanson, who's up there in age, but who's still doing his thing. It's a great opportunity for Martinez. Askarov versus Royval, two of the best flyweight fighters in the world. Duško, Todorović, and Jordan Wright, two fighters that have some of the worst striking defense in the game. So that should be a good fight, because somebody should get clipped with the shot there, huh? D-Rod gets thrown back in there. He just fought recently. He's taking on Magny. I think that this card, although it doesn't have the big names on it, I think that this fight card should play out to be a fun one. Tatsuro, Taira, this is a fighter that you guys know that I'm very high on. The Japanese prospect who's undefeated, who's really a well-rounded fighter, coming off Dana White's Contender Series, and he has a tough test in front of him. CJ Vergara is a tough dude. So, and then we got Mike Jackson taking on Pete Rodriguez, which is where we're gonna start things off. Let's go talk about that fight. So, taking place in the welterweight division, Mike the Truth Jackson. I've been putting in a petition to get his nickname changed to the Fib, or maybe we go with the Lie. But don't get me started on Mike Jackson here. Pete Rodriguez, a dead game. Pete Rodriguez better show up for this fight, because Pete Rodriguez, although he's only 4-1 as a pro, Now, remember, he came into his last fight. He had a tough test in front of him where he faced off against Jack Della Maddalena. He came into that fight with only 4 professional fights, but understand that Pete Rodriguez that does have a substantial amount of amateur fights. So this isn't some fighter that just doesn't have any type of experience. He's very green. Yes, he doesn't have a lot of fight time as a pro as well. He's been going in there starching guys, knocking dudes out left and right. But again, he has a good amount of amateur experience. He knows how to strike. He has good boxing. His boxing is solid. In the Jack Della Maddalena fight, you have to understand that Jack is the real deal. I mean, everyone's starting to understand that Jack is the real deal, and we'll see how far he can push it. That was just a tough test for a guy like Pete. And if I remember correctly, I think he took that fight on short notice, if I remember correctly. So, the UFC giving him a little bit of a gift here, where you got Mike Jackson, a fighter that, if you guys remember, he went in there and made a name for himself when he took out CM Punk. He got the opportunity to go spank CM Punk up. Dana White wasn't happy with his performance because everyone felt he could have finished CM Punk, but he was just kind of messing around with him. I'm not really sure what the deal with this dude Mike Jackson is. I think he kind of just fell into this opportunity to fight in the UFC, and he's been holding on to the opportunity. In his last fight, he was on his way to losing the fight, but then his opponent, Dean Barry, the Irish fighter, ended up gouging his eyes or whatnot. There was that whole controversy, and Jackson ends up getting a W when it's all said and done, which is crazy. But Jackson went into that fight as a major underdog. He comes into this fight as a major underdog. The young buck, Pete Rodriguez, who's about to be 26 years old, taking on Jackson. Jackson is 37 and a half. Jackson will be a little bit taller. You'll have that little bit of a length and reach advantage. I will say this. Although Mike Jackson's not a UFC caliber fighter, he's decently smooth with his movements and his defense at times. Doesn't have any real pop or anything like that. I think Pete Rodriguez is going to use proper footwork, and he'll work his way into the inside and land some heavy shots. And I'm really hoping that Pete Rodriguez gets the finish on Mike Jackson, and this is the end of the Mike Jackson era, if you want to call it an era. But it's been lingering for some time. If you remember all the way back to that CM fight, which let's see how long ago that CM Punk fight took place. That took place back in 2018. We're talking about 4 years ago. And believe it or not, he does. He got finished by Mickey Gall. Excuse me there. Had a Muay Thai fight under his belt, so some striking experience. But again, do not get it twisted. Mike Jackson is not a UFC caliber fighter. Pete Rodriguez, the book is not out on him, but he's a talented kid, and he does have potential to be a legit UFC fighter. Let's go take a look at the betting line here. We pull this fight up right now, and you see that Pete Rodriguez, he's going to be the biggest favorite on the fight card. He's a minus 675 right now on Bovada.lv. Mike Jackson is a plus 460. And I think that's an accurate line. Okay, I think that's an accurate line. The only way I see Mike Jackson really winning this fight, in my opinion, is if something flaky happens like it did in the last fight, some type of point deduction or something tricky like that. And Mike Jackson is a little bit of a weasel, so he'll look for those types of opportunities. So be careful there. But other than that, Pete Rodriguez, I know he dropped his first fight in the UFC, but he has some heavy hands. His boxing's good. I think he keeps his fight on the feet where he will do some damage on Jackson, and I hope he gets that knockout. CJ Vergara taking on Tatsuro Taira, two fighters that made their way into the UFC off Dana White's Contender Series. Obviously, that's nothing new these days. The UFC roster is just filled with fighters coming off the show. Tatsuro Taira was one of the more intriguing fighters, in my opinion, that came through the show. He came in undefeated, still is undefeated. He got the victory there in the show about 4 months ago. Took out Carlos Candelario. A lot of you guys are familiar with him. Carlos has been around the block for a little bit now. He's a good fighter, and Tatsuro went in there and showcased what he's about. Tatsuro has shown that he's a solid striker. He's a good striker, but he also has showcased that he's very well rounded. And if he's facing an opponent that gives him a little bit back on the feet, like if he's not dominating the fight, he can also go to his grappling. I like his takedowns that he was pulling off in his last fight. I like the groundwork that he was working. He has very good jiu-jitsu. I think that he is a well-rounded fighter. He's a very polished fighter. And it's crazy because he's only 22 years old. I really think there's a lot of potential for Taira to be a household name as far as Japanese mixed martial arts goes in the UFC. And I'm excited for that. You guys know I've been really wanting to see some of the Japanese fighters come over to the UFC, because of course a lot of them are going over to ONE FC, but I want to see some of the more talented fighters work their way into the UFC. Back in the old days, there was a lot of big name Japanese fighters fighting in the octagon, or even from the Pride days, of course. But we need a little bit more of that over here. So CJ Vergara, he's a very tough fighter. He had a knockout over Bruno Correa on Dana White's Contender Series. I believe Bruno Correa, he might have been a champion in one of the more known regional promotions, and Vergara was going into that fight as a pretty big underdog. Went in there, showed up, showed that he's a dog. He's very confident. He goes in there and looks to take his opponents out. Dropped a decision loss to Ode Osborne, and then after that, rebounded with a split decision victory over Cledson Rodriguez, who's a pretty talented Brazilian fighter there. So Vergara is still showing that he's game. Vergara, in my opinion, mostly what I see from him is his boxing. He favors his boxing. He has some solid power, and I'm trying to think what Vergara is gonna want to do to get the job done here. And it's going to be a tough test for him, in my opinion, because Taira can do so many things well. I think that Vergara is going to want to definitely keep this fight standing. I think that Taira is the more talented fighter down in the mat, and but that being said, I also believe that Taira is the more diverse and more talented striker, but Vergara has some skills there as well. So of course he has much more than a puncher's chance. I mean, he can land a big shot, he can do some stuff from the feet there too, so that's going to be his avenue. But I say that Taira just has more opportunities to get the job done here, and he's a very game fighter, and he makes great adjustments in the cage. When you watch him fight, he makes great adjustments. If any of his opponents are giving him a little bit of trouble in any types of situations or areas, he'll adjust and he'll change things up until he finds his route to take over the fight, and that's something that I like. He has good fighter IQ for a young kid. So yes, I do like Tatsuro. You guys know I'm going with Tatsuro to win the fight here. I think he probably wins a unanimous decision. Maybe he pulls off some type of sub, but I'm going more of the decision route. Vergara's tough. Minus 250 line next to Taira's name, with the comeback on Vergara at plus 200. It's a little bit of a steep line, but that's the type of line you're going to see next to Taira's name as of now. When he's fighting guys like Vergara, that's what you're going to see. That's what we've been seeing, and he's going to be that kind of favorite until proven otherwise, or until he takes a little bit of a leap up in competition. So, I mean, you're going to throw it in a parlay. I wouldn't really be attacking props on that fight, in my opinion. I wouldn't be attacking props. So you either get feisty and throw it in a 2-team parlay with something else, or I don't know. Maybe you just throw a little bit of money at Taira and just try to put a couple coins in your pocket. But it's a steep line, in my opinion. Vergara's tough, so Piera Rodriguez taking on Sam Hughes. Both of these fighters, kind of snagging some male MMA fighters nicknames. You got P-Rod kind of snagging up the D-Rod nickname, even though that's not really her nickname and I just made it up. But I'm hoping that catches some wind, and all you guys start calling her P-Rod. D-Rod's also fighting on this card. And then you got Sandpage taking a little page. You like that, right? Little page out of Rampage Jackson's book. Sam Hughes coming off 2 victories in a row. More importantly, the last fight against Elise Reed, where she went in there and just absolutely crushed Elise Reed with her grappling. Before that, had a victory over Estela Nunez. And then before that, had a very tough time since entering the UFC. 3 losses in a row. But she's been cleaning some things up. Piera Rodriguez coming off Dana White's Contender Series. She had her first UFC fight against Kay Hansen. Now that's the fight that I want to talk about. In that fight against Kay Hansen, she really impressed me. She was taken down a couple times in that first round. She threw up her butterfly guard and whatnot, reversed Kay Hansen at one point in time, got back up to her feet, but then she was taken back down. She lost that first round, but I love the way that she went back to her corner, came out for the second round, and then took over the fight, and she won rounds 2 and 3, started to stuff the takedowns of Kay Hansen. Piera Rodriguez has good striking. She's a very well-rounded striker, and I really believe she can outpoint a lot of fighters in the division. Still undefeated, training out of Black House MMA. Of course, one of the more solid gyms in the game. I think that Piera Rodriguez really has some potential. 8-0. Now, towards the beginning of her career, not really fighting some of the best talent. And as you see her here wearing the gold, former LFA champion. And we're going to talk about that fight here in a second. But after those lackluster victories, I do like the work that she's put in, fighting Svetlana Gotsik, where she finished her in the 5th round. And that's a fight you can pull up on YouTube, I do believe. I forget if I pulled it up on a different website or if it was on YouTube, but I love that fight. She really showed that she could dig deep late in the fight, and she took that fight in the 5th round. That was a really an impressive performance, in my opinion. She looked good on Dana White's Contender Series. I mean, this girl shows to have some heart. She's a dog, and not a dog from a betting standpoint, but she's a dog as far as her heart goes. She's 29 years old. She's a very mature girl already with only 8 professional fights. So I think that her maturity will show as well. Sam Hughes, I think Sam Hughes' avenue to get the job done in this fight will be using the grappling, trying to get takedowns and try to do some work down there. I think that Piera Rodriguez will be the better striker here. And I kind of think, I don't want to sum the fight up just as if that's what it's all about, striker versus grappler, but I kind of see this fight playing out like that. And I have a feeling that Piera Rodriguez will look even better with her takedown defense than ever. I know that she's definitely been continuously working on her takedown defense. I think she knows what Sam Hughes wants to do. I'm sure she saw some tape, or her coaches saw some tape on that Elise Reed fight. And I'm going to say Piera Rodriguez wins the decision here. Even if she's taken down 1 or 2 times, she has good jiu-jitsu as well. So understand that even if she gets taken down, we're not talking about an Elise Reed type of fighter. I think that Piera Rodriguez has shown to have better Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and she shows to be more competent and comfortable down in the mat. I could see her pulling off some type of reversal, or just springing back up to her feet. Or if Sam Hughes gets reckless and just keeps shooting, I could see Piera Rodriguez capitalizing on those sloppy takedown attempts and maybe even pulling off some type of sub or reversing her and getting on top. I got Piera Rodriguez to win this fight. Let's take a look at the betting line. Let's see what we're talking about here. Piera Rodriguez is right now right around a -190 favorite. That's what she is on Bovada. Sam Hughes is a +155. And, I think that this line could be worse at a different point in time. Right now, Sam Hughes, she finally showed up. She took out Elise Reed. She kind of took advantage of Elise Reed with the grappling, and her stock is a little bit higher. But if he doesn't have that Elise Reed victory, we're talking about a completely different line here, in my opinion. I think you could see Piera Rodriguez as high as a -350 or something like that. So, I got Piera Rodriguez to win this fight. Maybe she snags up a sub on a sloppy takedown or whatnot. But if not, she picks Sam Hughes apart, stuffing the takedowns, and wins a unanimous decision all 3 rounds. Hey, what's up, you guys? Real quick, if you guys are interested in working with me for my official plays, I got a lot of messages from you guys asking about them. If you're interested, shoot me a message. I'll give you my pricing, and I'll give you all the details, and I'd love to work with you if you guys want to. And if you don't, still much love, much respect to you, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Raphael Assunção taking on Victor Henry. How about Victor Henry? Do you remember that performance that he just put on, where he was a massive underdog against Raoni Barcelos? And came into that fight and took it. Big time performance by Victor Henry. Now he gets an opportunity to face off with somewhat of a legend in the game, Raphael Assunção. He's been around forever, way back since the WEC days. And Victor Henry must be licking his chops right now, because Assunção is coming off 4 losses in a row. He's coming off 2 knockout losses in a row. Assunção right now, he's 40 years old, fighting in the bantamweight division. Victor Henry brings in the size advantage. He brings in the toughness, the durability, all that. This is a tough fight for Assunção, in my opinion. I've always been very high in Assunção as well. He's a well-rounded fighter. At one point in time, he was an extremely underrated fighter. He was on a tear for a long period of time, and he really wasn't getting the respect that he deserved. Had a victory over TJ Dillashaw, right? I believe so. Back in the day, it was kind of a bad decision, and then TJ won the rematch. Hope I didn't just make that up. That's what I remember. But we go back to this fight. I mentioned the size advantage. Victor Henry, 2 inches taller, has about a 2.5-inch reach advantage. This guy Victor Henry, man, he's a game fighter. He's a crafty fighter. He's just one of those types of dudes that just he goes in there. He's well rounded, and he's not phased by his opponent. And I think that's important here because Assunção, although he is older at this point in time with the losses and whatnot, but people that know the fight game and fighters that pay attention to the history of the sport, they know what Assunção is about. And but that's just not going to phase a guy like Henry. Henry's going to come forward and he's going to look to push the pressure on Assunção. And how can you trust Assunção right now? Again, with all the respect in the world, but Assunção coming off all those losses, he's at 40 years of age. There's real potential that Victor Henry just cracks him with the shot and gets the finish. We don't know how his chin's going to hold up. Remember that Cody Garbrandt knockout at the end of the round, that might have just kind of put the stamp on his career. Again, gets knocked out in his last fight too. Gets knocked out again by Ricky Simón. I mean, we're talking about high-level fighters here, but I don't have faith in Assunção to come in here and implement that kind of fighting style that he thrived with for years, which was kind of just being really quick, well-rounded, can stuff the takedown, can work the jiu-jitsu if it goes down there, but kind of outpointing his fighters in the feet, kind of poking at them a little bit and just kind of taking round after round for years. And I have a feeling that Victor Henry will get in his face and Assunção won't have that opportunity, and especially with the reach and the length advantage as well. Give me Victor Henry to get the job done. And I could definitely see Victor Henry getting a knockout here. I could. Now, real quick, we're going to jump back to the fight, but we'll just talk about the betting line. Victor Henry is a big favorite, a -350. I believe the second biggest favorite on the card. Assunção is a +255. It's a pretty high line. I mean, if you're getting frisky, man, maybe you're parlaying that with Taira or something like that. You're looking for that other leg. And I did also want to point out that although Victor Henry is new to the UFC with just that one fight in the UFC, he has a wealth of experience. We're talking about a guy that has 27 pro fights right now, only 9 less than Assunção, but Assunção has a lot of fights, and Victor Henry is 35 years old. This is not a spring chicken coming in. That's why you see him just reek of confidence when he's in the cage, because he has the years in there performing and whatnot, and I think he brings that right into this fight, and again, potentially knocks out Assunção. We got a real grappling affair here. Nick Maximov taking on Jacob Malkoun. Both fighters, without a doubt, favor their grappling. Nick Maximov, a world of experience over in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu scene. Same thing with Malkoun. Malkoun, just a lengthy experience in the grappling world, has wrestling experience and all that. Both of these fighters really look to push that type of fight. I'm interested to see which fighter is going to get the best of that situation. Now, Nick Maximov's coming off a fight where he was a pretty hefty favorite going in there against Andre Petroski, which really shouldn't have been the case. That line was off. If you guys run the tape back, I did edge Maximov to win that fight, and I was close to pulling the trigger on Petroski. I didn't, but I was kind of scratching my head a little bit at that line, kind of fell into the hype of Maximov. But Petroski's a beast. But in that fight, Maximov made a pretty elementary mistake, shall I say. I mean, for a guy like Maximov that has that jiu-jitsu experience, I was pretty surprised to see him leave that opening, got caught with that anaconda choke by Petroski. I would have liked to have seen that fight go on longer. Is Maximov going to make another type of mistake like that and maybe have Malkoun take advantage of some type of sub? We talk about the grappling of Malkoun, but realistically, he's not really going in there and subbing anybody as of recently. In fact, I don't believe he subbed anybody even as a pro. His grappling is a little bit different. And in fact, doesn't have any type of submissions as a pro, but his grappling is more so control and just, really getting a hold of his opponents and grinding them out. He's strong, he's physical. And is he going to be able to gain some type of control time over Maximov and control him down on the mat? Maximov is pretty tough. He's pretty tough there. Dating even back to the Askar Kota fight. Askar Kota was like a heavyweight, and Maximov went in there and pushed the pace with the grappling on him that entire time. Since that fight, out wrestled Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage, I believe a Division I wrestler. Ponele Seriano, that fight was a little different there. And Maximov, believe Maximov was actually a slight dog in that fight, and he showed up. I'll tell you the truth, I've been a little bit back and forth on this fight, and I kind of wanted to side with the dog here, Malkoun, but I'm not because I think stylistically, I think that Maximov is going to be able to hang in those grappling exchanges as Malkoun tries to close the distance, and I think that Maximov will be a little bit more smooth with his striking, and he'll score some points there. And I foresee this fight playing out very closely, but it kind of leaning towards Maximov's way from a point and scoring situation. So I am going to take Maximov to edge this fight out 29-28. I'll take Maximov, and I think he'll be very hungry coming off that loss. He's only 24 years old, a lot of room for growth too. He's the larger man here, 3-inch reach advantage. He's the taller man. I wanted to take Malkoun, but I am going to edge Maximov. I do think that he gets the job done, so I can't really sit here and take Malkoun. From a betting standpoint, Maximov's a -155, but the comeback on Malkoun at +127. Maybe more value on Malkoun. Maybe the line should be a little bit more tight. Maybe it should be more like a -135 line next to Maximov's name there. Maybe a +110 line next to Malkoun or whatnot. Again, I do believe Malkoun is live here, but I think that Maximov should take this fight. We'll see how it goes. Give me Maximov via decision and a close one. Mana Martinez taking on Brandon Davis. Brandon, Killer B. Davis makes his return about a year later after getting knocked out by Dana Badagarel. Mana Martinez, on the other hand, coming off a loss against Ronnie Lawrence, a fighter that I am very high on. And if you guys remember, in that fight, although Ronnie was handling business in that fight for about 12, 13, 14 minutes, Mana Boy did crack him at the end of that fight and almost finished him in the third round. That was a crazy ending to the fight. Mana Martinez throws heat on the feet, and he is a dangerous striker. Brandon Davis coming off that knockout loss. I mean, you got to wonder where his chin's at. I mean, I do like the fact that he took a long layoff. I've always been a little bit harsh on Brandon Davis, if I'm being honest. And mostly due to the fact that he lost to Kyle Bochniak. Whenever you lose to a guy like Kyle Bochniak, I will be a little bit harsh on you. But if we're being honest, since that loss, I mean, if you take a look at his losses, Davis has lost to high-level fighters. I mean, he lost to Zabit Magomed Sharapov, Enrique Barzola also. Barzola's a good fighter. He's fighting over in PFL nowadays, I do believe. I think PFL, not Bellator. Is it Bellator or PFL? One of the two. I don't know why that's slipping my mind right now. But, choked out Randy Costa. That victory doesn't look as good these days. I mean, based on the performance that Costa just put out there. The Hyung Ho Kong fight. Kong is a good striker. That was a split decision loss. Was a close fight. He went to a split decision with Giga Chikazi. That looks pretty good in retrospect. Then he went over to the regional scene. Won 4 fights in a row. Then he got knocked out by Baccarel. But we know Baccarel possesses big power. So maybe I'm being hard on Brandon Davis. It's kind of hard for me to sit here and just kind of to talk crap about him, which I have in the past. You know what I mean? Not really talk crap, but been a little harsh on him. I think that Davis may be the more well-rounded fighter here to an extent, but I'm not crazy about Davis's striking. I like Mana Martinez's striking better. I love the way that he goes for it. And I think that type of energy, his youth and that type of energy is going to be enough to take this fight. I could foresee Martinez cracking Davis with a big shot at some point within the 15 minutes. And I'm going with Mana Boy. I like his fighting style. Something about him intrigues me. I've been excited to watch him fight. If you take a look at some of his more recent victories too, the Guido Canetti victory looks better in retrospect. Guido's still doing his thing. The Jose Johnson knockout victory, that really looks good over at Fury. That victory there, Jose, I think it was Jose Johnson or Jose Johnson, but you guys know what we're talking about. He's now signed to the UFC. And he's fought on Dana White's Contender Series twice, I believe, and lost one, won one. The loss that he had was actually against a common opponent of Mana Martinez, which was against Ronnie Lawrence. So I do like Mana Martinez here, and I think that there's some real potential for Mana to get that knockout victory here, and I'm hoping that he does. That'd be exciting to see him get a knockout here in the middle of the card. I like Mana Boy. I don't want to see him get brushed to the side and get cut from the UFC. I want him to put out a couple good performances because I like the type of energy that he brings into the cage, and he's always looking for the kill, even if he's down. very bad on the judges' scorecards. He's still coming out there and he's looking to take you out. He's a dangerous striker. Give me Mana. And but we'll take a look at the betting line here over at Bovada.lv. We got Mana Boy Martinez at a current. Oh, are they hiding his name over here for me? Oh, that's right. Leo Mana Martinez at minus 162 with the comeback on Brandon Davis at plus 130. If Davis is going to get the job done as a dog here, Davis is going to have to obviously not get hit with that big shot. He's going to have to mix things up, maybe do some work down on the mat. He's got to come in with phenomenal cardio, maybe push the pace on Martinez, but Martinez has good cardio as well. Yeah, I like Martinez here, and there's potential for a knockout to take place in this fight, with it most likely being done by Mana Martinez. That's the route I'm going, and I got Mana to win the fight. Taking place in the light heavyweight division, not the middleweight division, Misha Cirkunov is versus Alonzo Menifield. Misha Cirkunov has a failed stint down at the middleweight division, loses his last 2 fights, loses to Wellington Turman, gets caught in an armbar. Was having some early success in that fight, then got caught in the armbar, and then they split decision, lost to Krzysztof Jotko. He's on a 3-fight losing skid. He's lost 4 of his last 5 fights. Cirkunov, I'm getting a surprise to see him hanging around in the UFC at this point, and I'll be surprised to see him on the UFC roster after this fight card takes place, because Alonzo Menifield has some serious power. Menifield is the more smooth striker here. Menifield, remember, he got in the game a little bit later too. He's 34 now. He's been active as of recently, but we're talking about a guy that has 15 pro fights now, almost 35 years old. Got in the game late, an athlete. He is a fighter that really packs a punch naturally, and his overall skill set has been being groomed out. So I know that Cirkunov has more MMA experience. I know he's been in the game from an earlier age and whatnot. He has all the traditional martial arts behind him and whatnot. A guy that has a lot of grappling experience. I believe he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I know he's a solid grappler. We've seen him pull off some nice subs, and that is his bread and butter. You see him cooking up here, throwing some chicken in the deep fryer, or his boy is. And I don't know if that's a horse or a dog over here, but Cirkunov, we'll talk about some of the things that he's done, some of his accolades. Because he has pulled off some nice subs. He had that Peruvian necktie on Jimmy Crute. That was a fight that he almost got knocked out in early, survived, pulled off that submission. The arm triangle choke over Patrick Cummins, guillotine chokes, arm triangle chokes, a neck crank over Alex Nicholson, the Spartan. You saw the Spartan over there with Mike Perry over in Russia. Those boys, not that I blame them, they seemed a little shook there, and I don't blame them at all, because I know they're down. But you don't want to mess around too much over there in Russia. If you guys saw that little video of Mike Perry, they didn't like him. Saying the old mother effer thing. They take that a little bit serious over in Russia. But Nicholson was with them out there, ex-UFC fighter. Armbar. Just the point I want to make is that if this fight goes down to the mat, that's where Cirkunov is going to have his opportunities. And I think that he better get this fight down to the mat, because if he doesn't, Menifield is going to land some big shots on him. Cirkunov, the southpaw, Cirkunov is just, he's not that smooth. He's not that coordinated with the striking. He's really not. And a guy like Menifield, look at him coming into this fight looking to be in phenomenal shape. He is a fighter that's only getting better by the day. Even though he's up there in age, he's still getting better by the day. And we haven't seen the best version of him. And I like his style, man. Menifield is a guy that really oozes confidence. Got to talk about that victory over Askar Mazarov. That was that fighter that supposedly had a fake resume, a fake record and whatnot. But Menifield was very smart in that fight. High fighter IQ, took that fight down to the mat and just absolutely smashed him with those elbows in the crucifix position. And the William Knight loss wasn't the best look, but we'll chalk that one up. All right, we'll chalk that one up. Menifield has shown development with his grappling to the Von Flue choke that he had over Fabio Charant. And that was coming off a big loss. Give me Menifield here. I'm gonna go with Menifield via TKO, something like that. I think we see another finish here. I'm getting a little feisty with calling these finishes. I think that this is a card where we could really see some entertainment. I think that there's some legit potential to see some knockouts or TKOs in these fights here, and I will say that this is one of them as well. Menifield is a minus 230 favorite. I'm not really crazy about that. Maybe you want to check out the prop line on a finish for Menifield. Not crazy, but a minus 230. Again, if Cirkunov can get a hold of Menifield and push this fight into the later rounds, hold him against the cage, similarly to what William Knight did, and eventually maybe get this fight down to the mat. Maybe he pulls off a sub as well, but he could also smother Menifield against the cage like William Knight did. So there is potential for an upset there, but I got to back Menifield straight up there. Neil Magny taking on D-Rod, not to be confused with P-Rod, who's also fighting on this card. Daniel Rodriguez, coming off one of the more controversial decisions in a long time. The vast majority, in fact, I haven't really came across anybody that really thought D-Rod won that fight. That was a little strange, right? I mean, that was tough to watch, man, for the Leech. That wasn't fair to the Leech. He took that fight on short notice, was fighting an opponent that had weighed in at a much heavier weight. Not that was D-Rod's fault or anything like that, but the Leech won that fight, and somehow D-Rod won it. I do like the fact that after D-Rod was seeing all the comments from the fans and whatnot, D-Rod said, let's run that fight immediately back. He wanted to step right back in there. I do like that type of energy that D-Rod has. I know D-Rod has put a lot of time in with guys like, with legends like Cerrone. I know he trains extensively with Sasha Palatnikov, who's a very talented striker. D-Rod is a very crafty striker in his own right. He's a well-rounded fighter too. We've seen him go in there, sub dudes with standing guillotines, and sub Tim Means with that sub. And D-Rod's a good fighter. He's a good fighter. But he's getting up there in age a little bit. Not that Neil Magny's a spring chicken, but D-Rod is about to be 36 years old. I didn't feel that he looked to be the best version of himself in that last fight. I'm sure he's motivated to flip the script here. But Neil Magny, in my opinion, is one of the more underrated fighters that we've had in the game, point blank. Neil Magny came off the Ultimate Fighter. He was the ex-Army veteran, or he was an ex-Army Ranger. I don't know if he was a Ranger, but he was in the Army. He's the Army veteran. I don't know. I'm having trouble explaining that. You guys catch what I'm saying. He was the guy that was on the Ultimate Fighter who used to be in the Army, and he's an awesome dude. He's trained for years over in Colorado. He's a fighter that really can push the pace. He's a well-rounded fighter as well. Has good wrestling, like I said, good cardio, and his striking gives a lot of his opponents problems based on the fact that he's so lengthy. He can work the kicks from the outside. His reach is ridiculous for the division. What's Neil Magny holding there? He has an 80-inch reach fighting in the welterweight division. He will have a 6-inch reach in this fight with the 2-inch height advantage. He could use those kicks from the outside. Neil Magny, man, he just impresses me. He does, and he impresses me. Yes, Shavkat went out there and eventually got that submission. Shavkat is a whole different type of animal, and you guys know that. And if you don't know that, you're going to find out soon. You guys know Shavkat's one of the fighters that I'm really backing, and you gotta love the heart that Magny showed in that fight, man. He was never out of it mentally, and same thing in the Max Griffin fight. Started off slow in that fight, was never out of that fight though mentally, continued to push and grind, got the victory there. The victory over Jeff Neal was a big one. The Chiesa fight wasn't his best, but if you want to run the table back before that, Neil Magny has been doing his thing in the octagon for a long time. And he has a lot of W's under his resume over legit fighters. All right, so his first UFC fight coming off the Ultimate Fighter was all the way back on the Rousey versus Carmouche fight card, which back in 2013, that was the first ever women's mixed martial arts fight. Okay, he fought on that card back in 2013. We're talking about almost a decade ago against John Manley. Victories over Tim Means, Alex Garcia, if you guys remember him from back in the day, Eric Silva back when he was on roids and all that, Kelvin Gastelum, Hector Lombard, that's a legit victory at that point in time, Johnny Hendricks, Carlos Condit, Jingling Li, Tony Martin. I ain't calling him Anthony Rocco Martin. You can't change your name halfway through. All right. That's like when you got a relative, right? Some uncle or aunt. All of a sudden, they go through that late stage of midlife crisis, and all of a sudden they cut their name down and they expect you to start calling them by this new name. They put a little spin on their old name. It ain't happening. All right, so that ain't happening with Anthony Rocco Martin either. So Tony Martin, victory over Tony, victory over Robbie Lawler, Jeff Neal, Max Griffin, who's been hot. And Neil Magny's a good fighter, man. I got Neil Magny. to get the job done here. It's not going to be an easy one for him. D-Rod is game. D-Rod is a tough dude, and we'll see how that fight plays out. But I am going to edge Neil Magny. I'm going to say he wins this fight by decision. And from a betting standpoint, the line is close on this fight. Neil Magny's a -130, just a slight favorite. So people losing faith on Magny. You know, he's getting a little bit up there in age as well, and some of his performances as of recently haven't been vintage Magny. But I think we see vintage Magny here. I think he gets the job done. Give me Magny via decision. Duško Todorović taking on Jordan Wright. This is the battle of the worst striking defensive fighters in the game. So it's going to be a fun one. You know, these guys, they put that chin up there, man. They put the head up on a pedestal, and it's there to be tagged. And both of these fighters actually have decent striking. You know, Jordan Wright is he has that karate background. He's a career mixed martial artist. And listen, Jordan Wright, props to him because, you know, his fight against Jamie Pickett, RIP to Jamie Pickett, as you guys seen that he just got locked up or signed up to fight with Bo Nickel. You know, RIP to Pickett. That will be his last fight in the octagon. And that's going to be a tough one for him. But if you guys remember, the Beverly Hills Ninja had a fight with Jamie Pickett, and that was one of the more entertaining fights that I've seen. That was on a big card. That was a fun fight. And, you know, I have respect for what Jordan Wright brings to the table. He throws some entertaining types of strikes out there. He'll throw the spinning attacks and whatnot. He's a big dude for the division. A lot of people don't realize, but he has a solid frame on him. 6'2" with a 77-inch reach. He'll be bigger than Todorović. Todorović, you know, I caught wind of what was up with him from the beginning. If you guys remember, Duško Todorović was a highly touted prospect as he came into Dana White's Contender Series on one of the very early seasons. Of course, he looks just like Dustin Poirier, juiced up. But don't be fooled. That is not the diamond there. This is a different man, the Serbian Todorović. The performance that he put on that show in Dana White's Contender Series was very lackluster. He held his opponent against the cage, and he still got the contract because he was so hyped up. But that performance that he had in the show was really indicative of who he is as a fighter. He's not really what some people were trying to make him out to be. He can do some things well. Like I said, his striking's not horrible, but he needs to, and it looks like he has been working on his striking defense. But he just leaves his head up there at times. In his last fight, I faded him on two separate plays. I had Chidi Njokuani to win the fight money line, and I had Chidi Njokuani to finish that fight via knockout TKO. So I just faded him in a major way. But I wouldn't be fading him in a spot like this just because Jordan Wright, coming off that loss to Barriute, the loss to Bruno Silva. We talked about the Pickett victory before that. He gets knocked out by Buckley. Again, and then the victory over Ike Villanueva. So both of his victories against very low-level opponents. Jordan Wright, he's live to land that big shot on Todorović here because Todorović leaves his head up there. And again, the examples of that when he got knocked out by Soriano and Njokuani. Somehow he did survive against Gregory Rodriguez. The victory over Maki Pitolo, the highlight of his career, that or the Daquan Townsend, probably the Pitolo fight. I'm hoping we see another knockout. I'm going to say another finish in this fight. Another finish happens on the card in this fight here. I'm calling a lot of finishes here. But I got to go with Todorović. He has more potential still. He's a little bit younger. He's a little bit of he's slightly the better fighter here, for being honest, right? And Todorović can do something good in the sense he goes in there and he can stifle his opponents at times. He'll hold them against the cage. He is pretty strong. He's well-rounded. And I'll go Todorović. From a betting standpoint, Todorović is going to be a pretty solid favorite. He's over a 2-1 favorite. He's a -210 right now. I'm not crazy about that line. Jordan Wright's feisty. He's a game. He's going to show up. He's going to throw some wild attacks at Todorović. If the things get crazy, they start mixing things up, right? We'll throw a knee in there. He'll throw an elbow. He'll throw some things. And if he clips Todorović, who's coming off a knockout loss, I could easily see Todorović being the man who gets knocked out in this fight. But I could also see Wright being the man that gets knocked out in this fight. And I see that happening a little bit more so. I will edge Todorović to win the fight. And hopefully we see a knockout one way or the other. Askarov taking on Brandon Royval. You know, Askarov, you know, a guy that's really known for asking a lot of questions. You know, that's what they say. He's just always asking people stuff. Askar, you know, so the word is that, if you guys haven't heard, he used to have a different first name, but his parents said when he was around 4 or 5, he just continued to ask so many questions that they're like, we're going to call him Askar. And, you know, it it worked out good because his last name was also Askarov. So it blended beautifully, and the rest is history. Now Askar is coming off a loss against Kaikar France. He kind of slowed down in that fight, and France was able to use his striking to take over that fight. That was a tough one for Askar. But if we're being honest, man, Askar is a very, very tough opponent. Before that, victories over Joseph Benavidez, victories over Alexander Pantoja. That was a big one. That was a very big fight. And he kind of broke down Pantoja late in that fight, used his wrestling and his grappling in that fight. Took out Tim Elliott before that. Went to a split decision with Brandon Moreno. Askarov is the real deal. He's only 30 years old. He's cruising right into the prime of his career. And then you got Brandon Royval, who's just an absolute dog. The nickname, the Raw Dog. It's very fitting. Then you see him here. You see the smoke, floating around in the cage and whatnot. It makes perfect sense, man. This is the type of dude that's so creative in the cage, on the mat. He's so creative with everything that he's doing out there. Now he's extremely aggressive. I love that. I mean, if you take him down and you're on top of him, good luck. He's gonna be throwing all types of attacks at you. He is one of my favorite fighters to watch in the game right now. That being said, I think that this matchup is a little bit of a tough one stylistically for him, in the sense that Askarov is very technically sound and should be the stronger fighter here and the better wrestler and grappler. And I could see Royval making some mistakes with those wild attacks. Maybe he goes for an Eminari roll, does some crazy nonsense, and I could see Askarov just kind of solidifying that top position. Now, yeah, Royval will be going crazy and will be threatening with all types of subs. But Askarov is pretty technically sound. He's never been submitted. And then as far as the striking goes, Askarov will be the more technically sound fighter on the feet as well. Royval will be throwing all types of wild attacks, but I got to edge the more technically sound fighter here. Askarov is no joke. He's a very serious fighter. He's one of the best flyweights in the world right now. And I do have Askarov to win this fight based on him being the more technical fighter. And again, a little bit of that strength as well. He's a very physically strong guy for a size. Doesn't look like it, but he's very physically strong with his clinch and his grip. Royval will have a 3.5 reach advantage. He's 3 inches taller. I'm still going with Askarov. I think he closes the distance, and he wins a decision here. Potentially pulls off a sub. When this fight goes down to the mat, if Royval gets a little crazy, sometimes he gets a little bit too crazy and he hurts himself, or he leaves an opening, he'll get snagged up and subbed. I could see Askarov maybe pulling off a rear naked choke or something like that. But I like Askarov to win the fight, and maybe he'll hop on the mic and he could ask some questions to whoever is holding that mic. And Askarov is a -197, basically a -200 favorite, or 2-1 favorite here. I think based on what I'm talking about here is what people are seeing. Just the potential for him to be that more technical and better wrestler here, to be the better wrestler and kind of take over the fight like that. Well, Royval will be throwing these wild things at him, and maybe there's a +155 chance something like that happens. I think the line's pretty accurate. Jonathan the Dragon Martinez taking on Cub Swanson. Cub, the killer Swanson, a long-time fighter. I used to watch him back in the WEC days. You guys know I love to reference my WEC. Well, Cub Swanson was the staple of that promotion. Really one of the legends from WEC, and he's came over to the UFC and has had a hell of a career. And he's still doing his thing. He's won 3 of his last 4 fights. I had the pleasure to watch him fight live against Kron Gracie. He was a big dog in that fight, spoiled the party there. Took out Daniel Pineda. I believe he was an underdog in that fight as well. Pineda was rolling in high, using all those steroids and whatnot, and then coming into the UFC, but falling flat there. He got finished by Giga Chikazi. We know he's a devastating striker, but then he bounces back with the victory over the very stiff Darren Elkins. Cub Swanson's last fight was 9 months ago. He's about to be 39 years old. I don't really like that. Jonathan Martinez also doing his thing, taking out Vince Morales, Alejandro Perez, and Zviad Lazishvili, the Georgian fighter, who I believe was undefeated going into that fight. Got knocked out by Davey Grant. So, keep an eye on the chin there if Swanson can maybe crack him with a similar type of shot. Before that, he takes out Thomas Almeida. Props to Jonathan Martinez, man. I remember when he first made his way into the UFC as a young kid. And, he was a fighter that you just kind of was blending in on the undercard, and you didn't really know what he was going to do with his career. And he's really proven to be a very well-rounded fighter, but particularly he's very smooth on the feet. With his southpaw style, he's very he's silky smooth. That's how I like to say. I like to use that adjective, and there's some fighters that are deserving. Martinez is one of them. He's silky smooth on the feet with that southpaw style. And but listen, Cub Swanson's silky smooth also. Swanson's very comfortable on the feet. He has good head movement. He's a solid boxer. I'm excited for this fight. I really am. Both guys, from a physical standpoint, very similar. Fight taking place in the bantamweight division. So you do take note of that. Cub Swanson fight in the bantamweight division. So you just keep an eye on that weight cut. Cub Swanson looking to make one last run at it here. And real quick, Cub Swanson, his last fight. Yeah, this is, I believe, this is the first time he's ever fought in the bantamweight division. I do believe this is probably the first. I've never seen him fight in the bantamweight division, right? Am I missing something here? No, this is definitely the first time. So you got to definitely question the weight cut, and that his age. I'm not really a big fan of older fighters doing those types of weight cuts. But listen, if there's a fighter that can pull it off, it's a guy like Cub Swanson, who's extremely game and looks to be in phenomenal shape here. That being said, I got to edge Jonathan Martinez to be the more crisp fighter, man, the better fighter here. I like what Jonathan Martinez brings to the table. If Cub Swanson's going to get the victory, I think that Swanson needs to crack him with the big shot and hurt him. Otherwise, I think that Martinez will just be a little bit more smooth. 16-4 as a pro. He's a legit fighter. He's cruising into the prime of his career. Give me Jonathan Martinez. And as we look at the betting line, Jonathan Martinez is going to be a -170 favorite with the comeback on Swanson at +140. I think that line's accurate. It's respectable. And Swanson's still been going out there doing his thing, so you can't really you can't put a ridiculous line on Martinez there. And I think Martinez is going to win a unanimous decision. What's up, you guys? Real quick, the offer is always on the table. If you're looking to sign up for a new sports book, reach out to me. I'll send you over my referral link to bavada.lv. If you sign up through my link and deposit some money into your account, I'm giving you a free fight card for my select bets for any fight card that you want. It could be this upcoming weekend, or you could hold off to a bigger card. So that offer is there for you guys. And if you want it, reach out to me. In the main event, we got Alexa Grasso taking on Viviane Araujo, taking place in the flyweight division. Two very promising fighters. First and foremost, props to Viviane. I did have an official play on her in her last fight, and she was an underdog against Andrea Lee. She came through for me. She felt some early adversity and fought right through it. She's a very tough fighter, and she does some things very well that we'll be talking about here in a second. Alexa Grasso, also a fighter that has really polished out to be a solid fighter. This fight right here stressing me out making a decision here, because you guys know I've been taking these underdogs in the main events left and right. We had 2 underdogs in a row on the last two fight cards. We lost one, we won one. Of course, Yadong Song didn't come through, but we bounced back last week with Yan. And I'm tempted to take a dog here, but I'll give you my pick here in a second. Alexa Grasso looked very good against Joanne Wood, the way she was able to pull that submission off. We see that Grasso is working on her ground game. Grasso, she throws much more crisp and straight shots than Viviane. Viviane's just kind of always looking to crack her opponent with these big hooks she's coming in with, which I'm not really crazy about. I mean, they look phenomenal when they land. She throws heavy calf kicks. She throws nice calf kicks. But Alexa Grasso, I favor her striking here in a 5-round fight. She throws those nice straight shots. And I'm kind of cutting to the chase here, but I'm not a fan of the way that Araujo looks later on in some of her fights. She does slow down a little bit with her style. And a girl like Grasso will just continuously come at you. And, one of the big question marks with Grasso at times was her takedown defense. But she's been working on that. And but I will say this, if Araujo is going to have success in this fight, I don't believe that she's going to want to go out there and just have a straight stand-up war with Grasso. She's going to want to get a hold of Grasso and slam her down, get on top of her. We saw Viviane do that to Andrea Lee. She picked her up and literally threw her over her shoulder like a sack of potatoes and slammed her down. I could see her getting a hold of Grasso and taking her down, but this is a 5-round fight. I just don't think that she can consistently do that. And the way that she slows down later on, I think that Grasso will get back up to her feet. Grasso's been looking good down on the mat with her jiu-jitsu. So although I definitely did want to give you guys another dog here, and Viviane Araujo, I'm not going to be able to do it here. And I kind of second-guessed myself because I did have her as my pick as I was breaking down tape earlier today and whatnot. But the more I was watching tape, as I finished up, I was like, I got to take Grasso here. I just was not a fan. The way that she looked in the Chikogian fight, she really slowed down late in that fight. She has a loss against Jessica Ai, which is not the best look either. But Viviane's live here. She's live. She has a 2-inch reach advantage, even though she's an inch shorter. We're going to go take a look at the betting line here. You're going to see that the Grasso is a flat 2-1 favorite here with the comeback on Viviane, a plus 160. I mean, this fight, it just depends how it's going to play out here, man. I want to say that there's more value on Viviane here at plus 160, but it's a 5-round fight. I mean, I wouldn't want to pay a minus 200 tag, I don't think, on Grasso. I don't think, but I see Grasso doing her thing here. As we hit the end of the second to the third round, I really see Grasso doing her thing and those straight shots really taking over this fight. But understand that Viviane might have some control time early in the fight, and if she can continue to do that, she can steal some rounds. Maybe more value on her tag here. This is a tricky fight to call. Maybe you just stay away from this main event as a whole. But I will take Alexa Grasso to win this fight, unanimous decision. Maybe 4-1 rounds. Maybe we go 4-1. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap up the fight card. Appreciate you guys a lot. Really, really appreciate you guys for hitting the like button, the subscribe button, all that, for following me on my social media. Truly means a lot to me. Thank you guys. Hope all of you guys are doing good out there. Again, especially you guys that are listening to this video all the way to the end. I know you guys are my real supporters, and I hope all is good with you guys. You guys know I'd like to leave you with some words of wisdom as we part ways. I can't just keep repeating myself, so I got to go a couple different angles with what I'm saying to you guys. I'll try to just keep it diverse and all coming from all types of angles. I mean, listen, I'm in my early 30s. I'm sure there's some of you guys that are still very young in your early 20s, if not your late teens or whatnot. If I could try to spit some wisdom, maybe it helps out somebody. I would give you this advice, especially when you're younger, man, and you're full of testosterone, or you don't have so much life experience, man, and you're just ready to just kind of go crazy in anybody. Man, I'll tell you a story. The other day, I had some guy tailgating on the back of my car. I mean, inches from the back of my car. And this seems to happen even often these days, man. There's always someone in the back of my car. I used to take those types of situations and really just throw gas on the fire, if you catch my drift. You know what I mean? It used to drive me crazy, pulling my car over to the side, swerving on people, doing other things that I wouldn't even repeat here on YouTube, but doing all types of things. There's all these people on the road, and you know what they say, man, when you're driving, because you're driving and your reaction time to the speed and all that's going, it kind of heightens people's just kind of their adrenaline and their attitude and whatnot. And people do stupid things like that. But, what I want to say is, and just in that situation, but into all types of situations, is if you're at the bar, if you're doing this, you're doing that, be careful, because when you're young, you feel like you really have nothing to lose, and you're quick to do things that could really put your life in jeopardy, especially nowadays. Really, not even nowadays, man, especially anytime in human history. All right, you mess around with people you don't know. Sometimes you don't know who you're messing around with. And it's crazy, because when I was younger, when people would say that to me, it used to kind of really annoy me. It used to kind of piss me off when people would say, "Oh, you don't know who you're messing with." I used to think that they were a pussy for saying that, because that type of mentality is kind of, in my opinion, at that time, was a weak mentality. You got to just be ready to go, because if you have that mentality where you're more ready to go, you're going to be the victor. But it's just not worth it, man. I'm telling you guys. I know stories, man. I know stories of stupid stuff happening to people like that. So just be careful. You never know who's behind you. Maybe what you want to do is just go the speed limit, let this guy act a fool. When there's an opening, let him pass you, whatever. Don't even look his way, start flicking him off or whatnot, because you never know, man. There's a lot of losers and a lot of nuts out there these days that really have nothing to lose. And I know there's some of you guys out there that feel like you have nothing to lose, but you guys really do have a lot to lose. And maybe some of you guys could feel me on that. A lot of you guys think you have nothing to lose, but when you really sit down and really count your blessings, I mean, you got family, you got people that care for you. So just enjoy the finer things in life. Work on yourself and put time into feeling good about yourself and put time into enjoying yourself and just, you know, align your stars and what you're trying to do and just focus on that. And don't get caught up in the stupid stuff, and don't get caught up in the little obstacles of life that stress you out, and you have a little bit of controversy in your life for a day or two, and all of a sudden you feel like it's the end of the world and you feel like you have nothing to lose, when really if you sit down and think about it, give it a week, you're not even going to give a damn about the situation. Whether it's girls, we'll do another video, we'll talk about that, man, but girls, exes, breakups, that's the stupidest shit. And then you end up doing stuff that ends up shaking your whole life up, man. So hear my voice in your head, man, if you're doing something stupid like that, because I'm telling you, it does happen. And I know I get a couple thousand of you guys watching this. Maybe I could help affect one of you guys out there. So I'll leave you guys with that. All right, guys, love you all. Signing out, Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.